Most of the talk of the offseason has been surrounded around the Georgia football offense. When it comes to this team, I think that the defense is hard to tell if it's going to be better, worse, the same than last year's defense. I think that the 2023 defense for Georgia was kind of unfairly judged. You're coming off of a 2-year span of national championships and holding opponents to really low scores on a game by game basis, and obviously the 2021 team being historic, being up there as one of the best teams, best defenses in college football history, right? It's undisputably one of the top 10, arguably top 3, top 5, whatever you want to say. So I think that last year's defense was kind of unfairly judged. I don't think that was a good, when you come off of a 2-year span, you have Jordan Davis and Trayvon and Jalen Carter and just a bunch of secondary guys, Nakobe Dean, like all over the place, just guys that really meant a lot to the program. That doesn't change this year. Now they're missing a few more guys. Javon Bullard, Kamari Lassiter, really big names for Georgia over the last couple of years. Tyke Smith, right? So Georgia was not without its meaningful losses this offseason on that side of the ball, but I think that it was promising a G-Day. I think that that there's a lot of talent there. That they've recruited and developed a lot of guys. It's just a matter of, are they going to step up into this role? There's a few guys that have been around for a few years, and now they've got that experience under their belt, and you would imagine are going to take a step forward. If that's a fair way to put it, I think that's a fair way to put it. So I think that there are a few guys that can really shape this team. Shape the team. What do I mean by that? I think that their season, and in college football especially, it's not predicated on one player, right? This is not the NBA. College football is very much team sport. For the most part, there are not many seasons like Cam Newton's where it was like, wow, he was doing that much as one guy. He is really 90% of the reason why they went as far as they did. Well, I think that there's a few defensive players that we can key in on and say, if that guy did good or did well or did bad or whatever, I think that that's going to reflect a little bit of how Georgia does, especially the defense does as a whole. I think there are a few important guys. I want to start with Daylen Everett. All right, I've got I have 4 guys really I'm talking about. 2 of them play the same position. Daylen Everett. Okay. Georgia's secondary is losing 3, 4. Javon Bullard, Kamari Lassiter, Tyke Smith. Those are 3 big losses at the secondary. All right. Malachi Starks is the most obvious answer for a guy that's going to shape Georgia's defense. So I'm not really talking about that. He's obviously one of the best players in the country. And I think he's going to be really important for Georgia this year. Kamari Lassiter played his way into being a high second-round pick in the NFL draft at the cornerback position. A lot of corners taken early in this draft. He was one of them. I think that, numbers-wise, if you just you have to look at the advanced stats with Kamari Lassiter to really know the story with Kamari. They didn't throw the ball at him that much, but one of the better open field tacklers that I've seen at that position, a guy that brought a lot of energy and juice to the locker room. And from what I've seen and covering this program the last couple of years, Daylen Everett is not quite the energy guy, right? Different type of corner. Kamari was sub 6 feet, a little bit more physical. Daylen Everett is 6'1", right, and a little bit longer, got longer arms, so different types of corners. And Daylen Everett is not, from what I've seen, maybe behind closed doors and in the portions that I don't see, maybe he is a little bit different. But he's always been a little bit quieter from what I can tell, from the press conferences, from just everything, really. I've always noticed that Daylen Everett has been a little bit quieter. And so Kamari Lassiter was a big rah-rah, 1, leader, and 2, just the energy he brought on the field, the big hits, the celebrations, the bat downs. He meant a lot to this Georgia program, and Georgia program is going to be playing a lot of really good football teams this year that have really good wide receivers. Texas, they're going to have to play Isaiah Bond. Well, they're obviously going to switch around on him, but if Daylen Everett's the guy that's tasked with guarding him, right, he's most likely going to be the number 1 corner for Georgia. The only one having as many starts under his belt, right? Started last year, even though he was kind of on a rotational basis. with Julian Humphrey throughout especially the early parts of the year, he ultimately, I thought, got better as the year went on. But he's going to have to play guys like Isaiah Bond. And against Alabama, Kobe Prentice, a guy that's probably going to take a step forward as a wide receiver in this league. A guy at Kentucky, wide receiver, Barrion Brown. If you haven't heard of him, remember the name Barrion Brown. I feel really good that he's going to grow and become maybe even a star in college football. Trey Harris and Antoine Wells Jr., great wide receiver duo at Ole Miss. Daylen Everett's going to be tasked with guarding guys like that. I think that there's promise in 5-star freshman Cam Coleman at Auburn. Obviously, he's a freshman. And then you think about all the really good receivers on the playoff teams that Georgia could likely play later on, like a Luther Burden in Missouri, a team that could make it. Evan Stewart at Oregon. Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, right? So there's going to be a ton of wide receivers Georgia definitely play, and then obviously has a chance to play later on in the college football season. And Daylen Everett's going to be largely tasked with guarding that wide receiver one. So I think that how he plays matters. This is a passing sport now. Number 2, Mykel Williams. Mykel Williams. This is a guy who has a very good chance of being a first-round pick in the NFL draft next April. 6'5", 265, super long arms. Like, this is the prototype first-round kind of pick defensive player. Well, he doesn't have a lot of crazy production, and sometimes at Georgia, because it's a committee style of defense, committee style of team, you don't have the same production. But as a freshman, the 4.5 sacks were like, whoa, Mykel Williams, bursting onto the scene. Deals with some injuries during his second year last year. Still gets 4.5 sacks, gets a forced fumble. Right at G-Day, you see him batting down passes, you see him intercepting balls, kind of all over the place. And you hear this spring that he's going to be playing some outside linebacker, to be standing up. Mykel Williams is one of the most dynamic players on this team. They're trying to make him even more dynamic. I think that it's going to kind of couple in with the players that I'm talking about next. But in the front seven, gaining a star in the front seven, I think, is extremely important for Georgia, because we saw how many stars they had in that position group over the last few years and how much that helped. And even in 2023, when they had fewer stars on defense, they had Jalen Carter, who was arguably better than all the guys who were ahead of him the year before. Mykel Williams, is he going to be a better version of what Trayvon Walker is for Georgia? Because that's starting to be the expectation that are being put on his shoulders, whether they are fair or not. And kind of coupling with that, my third guys, is 2 players, because they play a similar position on that defensive line. Interior defensive lineman Warren Brinson and Nazir Stackhouse. Guys coming back for year 5. Came back for year 5 for multiple reasons. 1, didn't like their draft stock, right? Hey, we need more time here. 2, didn't win a championship. Didn't win a championship as the guys on that defensive line. Well, now they're fifth-year guys. They will rotate with other players, like transfer Xavier McLeod and Christian Miller and maybe a couple of the even younger guys like Jordan Hall and guys like that. So they're still going to be on a rotation basis. But Nazir Stackhouse made a huge play against Missouri. Missouri the year before. Warren Brinson made huge plays against Missouri in run stop 2 years ago, right? So these are guys that know the moment, have been in big games, obviously, right? You look at the pictures in Dog Struction and Double Dogs, you can find them. You can find them on the field. But they aren't as good as the players that came before them the last few years, and they're going to be judged against that. Now, here's the thing. There's not like a real way to metric this, but if you just give them like 75% of the impact that those guys ahead of them had, we're talking about a really, 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 really good defensive line, better than what they have been. But the pressure is not constant compared to when he had Jalen Carter and George Davis, all those guys, and that's not an every year thing for Georgia. Maybe I should stop talking about it, just as other people should stop talking about it. But I think that interior pressure, right? There's a reason why those guys came back, and I think they want to play even better. So I think that these guys can really shape Georgia's defense in 2024. Thanks for watching.